everyone. John Lacossi here of Internet Marketing Experience, here with Phil Nicolosi, JD, Internet Legal Armor. So, Phil, we are here today to ask you the $1,000,000 question. Can these people stop online negative reviews from surfacing about their business on the internet?
It is $1,000,000 question with these startups and small business owners, especially that I deal with, and probably a pretty important question to them. And the short answer is no, not really.
Well, why is that, Phil?
Well, we'll get into that with this discussion. There's a number of legal hurdles that you'll have to overcome to even have a court consider it to be enforceable if you put something like that in a contractual clause that you're trying to enforce with one of your customers. But beyond that, to say that it's a gray area as to whether a particular court or forum that's ever hearing the issue that you're involved in would ever find that enforceable is an understatement. It's probably not enforceable, and at best it is a gray area. And I'm going to touch upon some of the reasons why that is and some of the things that maybe you should do to avoid negative online reviews in the first place. Not all hope is lost. As I say that it's probably not enforceable when you attempt to restrict your customers or clients from making negative reviews online. I don't think it's a 100% decided issue yet.
Okay.
I do think that the likelihood of someone winning on that issue is probably very slim. But not all hope is lost, and I think that if you were to give the customers proper notice and a set of terms and that kind of thing, and all the legal nuances that we'll talk about, there is a possibility. But for the most part, if one of my clients were to ask me, do I think it's enforceable here and now in real time, I would tell them no.
So basically what you're saying is, Phil, if a business customer wanted to build it into their contracts with their customers, hey, I'll provide this service for you, but it's in the contract, you cannot leave a negative review. You're saying that's not enforceable?
Probably not.
And it just won't hold up in court?
Yeah, basically, right. If it was ever litigated, I mean, it's not that you couldn't prevent them from doing it because they may think it's enforceable, but if push comes to shove and they show it to an attorney, the attorney may tell them, no, it's not enforceable, and go ahead and feel free to proceed and let them sue you, essentially, because if they were to do that, you'd prevail. So my point is that I don't think it's enforceable in a court of law if it were ever litigated. Now, it doesn't mean that it's not a strong deterrent, John.
Right. So it's never actually been litigated before?
No, it has.
Okay.
And it has. But and let me, before I even jump into that, California passed a law that said that you can't do it at the retail level. You can't put in your consumer contracts. You can't put an anti-disparagement clause in there where you restrict them from making negative reviews online.
Okay.
If you do that, you'll get penalized. It's just a clear violation of their state statute. So
Really?
that's going to set the tone, I would think, everywhere else as well. Yeah,
Sure.
they've actually got a law in the books. So has it been litigated? Yeah, there's been cases that aren't exactly. So I want to be clear on that and careful. There have been cases that have dealt with this issue, but not exactly 100% on point.
Okay.
And that's why I say that if we ever had a situation where it was very clear that the customer had notice of the negative review clause, anti-negative review clause, that they had a clear notice of that, they agreed to it specifically ahead of time. I do question whether that could be enforceable, and I say could be. But as we speak and as I'm doing this video, I would never tell any of my clients that as we sit here today that would in fact be enforceable. In fact, I don't even think it's a good idea for a lot of different reasons. But if they insist, I also wouldn't tell them that unequivocally it's not enforceable because a court of law, at least in Illinois, has said, has not, to my knowledge, ever said no, it's not. Although, again, the fact that we have an actual law in the books in California that absolutely restricts it there, I would think that a court of law in any other state is going to look to what California did and probably try to follow that model.
So legally, you're saying, Phil, there are no options really for anybody to do anything to stop online negative reviews. So people are leaving reviews on the internet nowadays. That's a hot thing. People love, sharing their experiences on the internet with other people who are also looking to do business with a place. What do you recommend to businesses for managing negative reviews that are left?
Well, It's a good question. I mean, it's questionable whether you can prevent them in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you want to try is up to you. It could backfire.
Okay.
That's always one avenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
The legal way of doing the legal avenue, whereas you
Mm-hmm.
prevent them in the first place from even attempting to do it. Um, if you don't think it's enforceable, you don't think it's a good idea, and I don't, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's bad for reputation, and I've seen it firsthand. I've experienced it. I've done these agreements, and I've told my clients about the risks, and they've still said, "Well, let's move on with them anyways." And it really has come back to bite them in the end. They've gotten a lot of blowback in the community, some of them for
Really?
attempting to enforce these provisions.
Mm-hmm.
So, from that standpoint, it may not be a good idea. Now, moving on from the prevention aspect of it, what can you do? Well, you can monitor these comments, and you can certainly respond in a kind way to anything that's untrue. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
Other than responding to anything that's untrue and trying to maybe clear the record straight in a very professional manner, there's really nothing else you can do. And I don't even recommend responding when someone's made a truthful statement,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's mean.
Right.
If it's accurate, maybe do a better job. But you really, to the extent that you can delete a comment, like on your own social media page or on a forum that you may have complete control over, your own website,
Mm-hmm.
you definitely don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So don't delete comments, especially forums that you're not going to have any control over them anyways. See if you can respond in a professional manner and
Mm-hmm.
apologize and try to rectify the situation, because then it shows the people reading those comments that you do care and you're trying to do what you can. And there's two sides to every story. I know when I
Yeah.
read reviews, I don't always read the negative ones.
Mm-hmm.
I read them all. So, but practically speaking, from a legal standpoint, it really is marginal at best whether you could prevent that from ever happening. And even if you could do so, would you want to do so? And would you
Yeah.
take a hit to your business reputation if you did it?
Mm-hmm.
And there's other legal concerns, by the way, John.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't even talked about First Amendment concerns and some other legal obstacles that may prevent your business from being able to enforce this. But I think you're getting the general sense from me that I
Right.
would try to steer you away from it if you were my client.
Okay. So, bottom line, you cannot legally prevent somebody from leaving an online review. And if you could, you probably shouldn't, based on the fact that it looks really, really bad. And you've seen people have blowback. And
Yeah.
to summarize?
Yeah, that's probably pretty accurate. Now in California,
Mhm.
California, excuse me, absolutely, you are restricted 100% by statute from doing it.
Mhm.
In other states, I can't make a absolute proclamation that it would be illegal and unenforceable without a case in each of those states on the books by the merits. But if I had to give my opinion, as in present day real time, yeah, I'd be highly surprised if it ever were upheld to be enforceable in any state outside of California as well.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, one thing that I usually tell internet marketing clients when they're dealing with negative reviews is to change the way they actually approach their customers about leaving reviews in the first place. Not necessarily you're not necessarily going to have somebody who's like a great review leave a bad review. However, sometimes people, when they get to the review stage, they try to be overly objective. So somebody that was really happy with a service might leave like a 3 out of 5 star review, at which point 3 out of 5 stars can actually be more damaging to your reputation than helping, right? Because you might have 5 and then somebody leaves a 3 thinking that they're being nice and they're really not. So it's actually hurting someone's online reputation.
Yeah.
So what I usually do, I coach my local business clients to approach customers by saying, hey, instead of just saying, please leave me a review on, Google Maps or whatnot, I say, please leave me a 5-star review on Google Maps. The call to action to ask for a 5-star review is a mental trigger for them when they're leaving that review later on that, hey, okay, I won't leave a 3-star, I'll leave a 5. There is no objectivity needed anymore. The business owner who I thought did a great job, they did it awesome, so I'm not going to even think about it. I'll leave a 5-star review and that's it. So, Phil, so from my opinion, if somebody does have some bad reviews, an easy way to counter it is to just get some really good reviews right away and to change the call to action as to how they're approaching customers for it. So instead of getting 3 and 4 star reviews, you're getting more 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, which will help make up for any 1 star reviews that might have happened.
Yeah, makes sense.
Absolutely. So is there any other tips or tricks that we can share with the people at home about online reviews, or how we can stop them legally, or how we
Well,
any strategies for managing them?
you
Well,
know, there really is no good strategy, and like I said, from a legal standpoint, you know, as I mentioned, really, I wouldn't tell anybody any different advice than a reputation management company that, you know, was a good professional company, knew how to do, which is respond appropriately and professionally, and never delete anything you have control over. But one thing I will point out is the BBB. Usually those complaints stay on the forum, the BBB record, for about 36 months, 3 years, I believe. And I think it's helpful to know that. And it's helpful to know they won't take them down.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem for a lot of my clients because, unfortunately, a lot of these complaints are not accurate. You know, and almost borderline fraudulent when, you know, it's kind of clear that they're trying to extort a refund from my clients.
Right.
You know, and sure, they respond, and that's all public information, but the damage, you can't unring a bell, right? So this isn't along the lines of a strategy. This is more along the lines of information. Understand the BBB process. Understand that you know, any black mark is going to take 3 years to remove, and, you know, but monitor that and make sure they do it after the 3-year mark because they can do it. Other than that, there's no easy answer, John. You know, and a reminder that there's so many legal hurdles that exist right now to being able to enforce any kind of a prevention, okay, from having, because you can do it as a deterrent. So you say, well, a helpful strategy. Well, if you consider it a deterrent and you say, well, I want to do this, and I don't really care about the ramifications, it could be a deterrent, sure. And people would read the agreement and say, well, gosh, I can't get online, you know, on Yelp or anywhere else and make any of these comments. But, you know, if you're going to do that and you want a deterrent, just understand that if push ever came to shove, there are a lot of legal hurdles that you'd have to overcome, including First Amendment concerns. You know, are you restricting someone's free speech? Is the contract what we call a contract of adhesion, where it's unconscionable, it's unfair, it's unjust? You know, you can have those. And I've actually gotten clients out of those. So you'd have to overcome all these hurdles to be able to enforce it to begin with. And, you know, all that aside, there's been a few cases at least that have talked about the First Amendment concerns, you know, and talked about certain aspects of the contract being unconscionable. Not a whole lot of direct cases on point, but there's been enough. And with the California statute, again, steer clear is my advice of doing it. So that's a strategy. Just don't do it. And then, you know,
well, let me cut in because you know, one thing you kind of touched on that I'd like to dive in on a little bit more for our audience. So our original question was, can you legally prevent? Let's say somebody got a bad review. Let's say it's completely unjust. Have you ever had a business client ask you to use the legal system to get a review deleted? Is there any ability for people to be able to do that legally? I mean, how does that work?
Only if it's defamation.
Well, so what?
I mean, yeah,
what characterizes
plenty of
that?
clients come to me and, as you can imagine, say, you know, let's use the court system to get this removed. It's not going to happen. I mean, you can't restrict anybody's freedom of speech. You know, they've got First Amendment rights and there's free speech rights, as we all know. Anybody can go on in this country, and probably a good thing, right? And they can give their opinion. And if it's your opinion, you know, I think Acme Company sucks. Well, that's just my opinion, and that's protected free speech. So unless it's false and it's, you know, able to be proven as true, objectively true or false, it's not someone's opinion, then it's not actionable, as we say, meaning it's not able to be pursued in a court of law.
So if the review is 100% false, meaning, you know, company did this, this, and that, and it was terrible. If they did not do that, are you saying that there is something that could potentially be done in court?
If it rises to the level of defamation, absolutely. If the business is defamed, sure, but it's got to rise to the level of defamation. And once it does that, sure, then you could pursue that. But you know, you would have to have a court order to get someone like Facebook, for example, okay, to take down a negative review, even if it was false. They're
Right.
not going to do it just because you say, hey, it's defamation.
Hmm.
You know, they're going to want to see a judgment.
Right.
So, you know, that's why it's very difficult, because of course you've got the terms and services and the social media forums and Yelp, and
Hmm.
they all say, well, you can't leave false reviews and you can't do X, Y, and Z.
Hmm.
But you know, when you try to enforce those terms, you know, the sad reality of it is you've got to prove that that person violated the terms. And I say sad reality because it's often very difficult to do,
Hmm.
and short of a court order, they don't seem like they really want to budge. So
Hmm.
it's tough.
So, online negative reviews, can you prevent them? The easy answer is, can you legally prevent them? The easy answer is no.
Probably not.
Best way is to manage them if they come through.
Right.
John and Phil signing off. Please make sure to follow our channel for more informative videos to come, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks, John.